All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a Raw Law Unfiltered with the DUI Guy Plus. I'm totally kidding. I'm not going to be wearing these shades during the stream. I just felt like putting them on because my eyes are like so tired. But today has been a full day of testimony, and oh my God, you guys, so many firsts, so much action, so much unnecessary drama. You know me, I am the first person to say I absolutely hate drama, but when it's like directly targeted at me for no reason whatsoever, I mean, I have to call it out, I have to like address it. Um, so first and foremost, let me just tell you like what happened, right? And in order to tell you the tale, I have to go back to July. Okay. So this is 2.5 months ago or 1.5 months ago, whatever it is, 1.5 months ago, July 18th. Okay. The week of July 18th. I flew in to San Francisco, Salinas on the 17th of July, and I was supposed to fly in on the 17th. Sorry, my flight got canceled. Or basically was delayed to the point where I would miss my connection. Might as well call it canceled. So I was on the first flight out, Monday, the 18th of July. I was in the courtroom by like 1:30 p.m. and I couldn't get inside the courtroom because it was already full. And back then we had 40 jurors, so it was very difficult to get like a read on the jury because I couldn't see them. All I could see was like glimpses of them. Well, anyway, I said to myself, all right, I'm gonna be back. Tomorrow. I'll be back the next day, Monday or Tuesday, July 18th. Well, the jury somebody I think ended up getting COVID, is what the consensus is amongst the people who were there. And so we were like I remember showing up, and a bunch of media people showed up too, and we were all like, what's going on? And some people said they had information, other people said they didn't have information, and some people blah 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 blah. I was supposed to fly out on the 21st, and lo and behold, as fate would have it, the 19th, 20th, there was no testimony. So I ended up driving down to LA. But before I left on that Tuesday morning, I befriended a bunch of like NBC people, a few other smaller networks, and all that. And all was peachy, right? And I left. I even got one of their cards. I remember I brought it with me because I emailed her like a couple days ago, and from NBC News. She never responded, and I was not really surprised, but a little surprised because she's like, "Yeah, we're da 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 da." Anyway, welcome. Welcome back, drama. Whoever you are a god. Oh, thank you for that drama. So, all right, so let's continue on as drama is. Oh wait, is Vanessa in the chat? Oh no, Vanessa Gamboa. All right, yeah, Vanessa Blair was. We were going back and forth earlier today. All right, the drama is back. So, and I left. I left on the 21st. I never got a chance to go back inside the courtroom, say hello to my media folks, and didn't get a chance to meet Chris Lambert, who does the Your Own Backyard podcast. None of that, and I left. Then I always planned, eventually I will be back. And plus, in the beginning, I think that when the jury's fresh, analyzing the jury is kind of a misnomer. Like, how can you analyze a jury that hasn't heard, but 1 or 2 days worth of testimony? So you live and you learn, right? That was a fluke for me. I should have gone to the Alex Jones trial in, was it Texas? That's the one I should have gone to. But unfortunately, I made a mistake. I came here, blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. So September 5th, I fly in. I was hoping to get in yesterday, but unfortunately I didn't get in yesterday because it was another impromptu dark day by the judge, meaning no testimony, no court. So this morning I got up pretty early. Again, you got to remember my biological clock is still on Eastern time. For another day or two, it will probably be there unless I try to keep it there by force. Going to bed super early and waking up super early does the trick. Well, I arrive at the courthouse. It's literally like 6:45 a.m. I am way early. Nobody's there. Not the clerks, not the bailiffs. The courtroom doors are closed. There are no jurors. There are no cameras outside that there were last time. There are no reporters, nobody. Like literally nobody. And I'm like, okay, I'm super early. At least I'm first. I even tweeted about it at like 7 a.m. I'm sitting around and I'm actually watching the clerks kind of trickling in one by one. And I'm like, all right, cool. Eventually they'll open the doors and it's 7:30. They open the doors and I walk in and I'm literally like the first one there. 7:50 maybe rolls around and the lady with the name tags comes and a few other media people arrive and it's all going well. I'm saying hi. I recognize a couple of them. I say hello. And the badge lady gives me my badge, which I ask for. She provides me with. I posted a photo of it on Twitter as well. Let me see if I can find it. Oops, that was wrong tab. I always forget to do this. Like just mute the video. There we go. So this was the photo I posted. And as you can see, it's got media, it says the DUI guy, and it's got the September 2nd date on it, right? That's the badge I was originally given. The bailiff comes out around 8 and says, I'm sorry, folks, but court has been delayed. And we're not going to be starting at 8:30 today. We're going to be starting at 10:15. Okay, no problem. Gives me time to go get coffee, get more coffee, get food. I'm hungry, so I figured I was just going to eat lunch, but I got time now, so I can go eat breakfast. And I go to like Tres Hermanos. I get myself some tacos. It's fantastic. I come back. I even remember my mom calls me because I'm standing there next to the media folks, just kind of minding my own business. And I noticed there's kind of like a weird vibe. It's like a weird vibe. And I walk away, but whatever. Don't think anything of it. Talk to my mom. And I feel like this presence behind me. And then she kind of stands next to me as I'm at the end of the hallway talking. And I look and it's the clerk. It's the head clerk. I remember meeting her on July 18th or whatever it was, the day that there was no court because of illness. And she put me on the media list and da. So I knew who she is. I even have her card here somewhere. And I go asking her, like, can I help you? And she's holding a badge. She's holding another badge. And I'm like, what's this? Was ist das? And she's like, oh, well, we accidentally gave you, or she said, like, our CEO said, blah, like, I can tell, like, I can smell bullshit a mile away. Come on. I'm a practicing criminal defense attorney. We're literally trained in bullshit. So I don't fault her. She was just, somebody tipped her off. And this is when I posted this photo. Somebody tipped her off that, like, DUI guy is not media. Like, what are you doing? Actually, I think I know who it is, but I will not call her out by name or him out by name until I can confirm. And I really, at the end of the day, I really don't give a shit. I like the public badge better than the media badge because it says two things. Number one, I'm more incognito. So people, it's not, I don't draw attention to myself, number one. Number two, it literally showed me how much power I truly have. Because that means, this is literally what this means, because nothing happens just by itself. Somebody had to come in and trigger something else to happen. Okay? And what that happened is one of the media folks went to the head clerk of the courthouse and was like, He does not. He's not media. He has not earned a badge or whatever. Not believe that same person back in July was like, oh, we should put you on the whole media thing. It literally just shows how two-faced mainstream media is. Because in July, it was beneficial for them, for me to be media, because they only allowed 5 media in the room. I would take a spot from one of the other media folks. I was useful, right? But today, I am there infringing on their information. I don't know, like as a public, I actually had a better seat than the media. It's not like where, you have like the select special super media seats and then you have the rest of bullshit fucking whatever, fuck you public seats. No, public can get better seats than the media, which I did. And I just needed it for one day. I don't even care. One of them tried to steal it from me. And I was like, lady, are you fucking joking? And she quickly moved away. Like, I don't take nonsense. I don't take kindly to bullshit. You try to fuck with me, I will bulldoze you. I am not afraid of you. Like, people can't get that through their heads. I may appear, like, with a name like Larry, I appear a little, maybe non-threatening, non-aggressive. Little do you know, I try cases against judges who are relentless, and I will fight them to the grave to get my information across. And you think you want to compete in that arena? Please be my guest. I will have lots of fun. And it's even more fun for me because now there's like a whole unit of you, and I am by myself. Like, I am lowly old me. That gives me even more fervor to fight for what is right. I will always stand my ground and I will never be defeated. So remember that, media people. Anyway, rant over. So I ended up getting my public badge and I walked over, and took my seat and began watching the jury. Let's talk about the jury, shall we? This is what you all came here for, and nobody wants drama. Like, I swear, I spoke with Vanessa, and she was like, Larry, you do realize you have like a larger viewing, larger audience than like some of these mainstream media folks. And I'm just like, really? How nice. Like, who cares? I don't understand, why can't everybody live and let live? Why is there this blind competition? Also, I don't know. Well, you know what? I'm not going to say it. Forget it. I said enough. They get the point. I don't need to say anymore. So this is Wednesday, September 7th. I got a new handy dandy notebook. This is a brand new notebook I bought yesterday at CVS, 99 cents. Only this time I think it was like $1.29. Prices go up, man. Everything's getting more expensive. So September 7th, Wednesday, Kristin Smart jury trial. The first thing I noticed is that the jurors were very friendly with each other, it kind of makes sense. They've been in this together for like 6 or 7 weeks now. Well, actually longer. It's testimony that's been going for 6 or 7 weeks. They also have been through jury selection, which means they go all the way back to like early June. They've actually been together for like 3 months now, and they still have like a month and a half, 2 months to go. So they're in it for the long haul, right? And it looks like-minded jurors have kind of found each other. They formed their own cliques. I love the fact that they're like so friendly with one another. There are certain isolationists, there are lone wolves, a few older gentlemen and a few older ladies who kind of like are riding solo. But for the most part, they kind of like found each other, and they're chatting away about life. Obviously they're not talking about the case. They're following the rules. They're good people. None of that shit. And you are permitted as a juror. You're not just like forced to sit there silently. As long as you're not talking about the case, as long as you're not forming opinions about it, you can talk about life, the weather, like what what you did yesterday, how you feel this morning, how hungry you are, how tired you like impressions. There's nothing wrong with discussing impressions. So I made it in. Tuesday morning, I made it in. Tomorrow, by the way, luckily I get to sleep in. I'm not going to be there as early because court resumes at 10:25, 10:30 technically, and the judge asked everybody to be there at 10:25, which is like 1:30, which is like 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. Q, I don't know why you're so obsessed with one of my employees, but it's getting a little creepy, just to let you know. Thank you very much, Della. So they're very upbeat. Maybe I'm thinking like they had a long weekend, the jurors. So perhaps that's why they're so like upbeat and happy and go lucky and so on, because it's been a long weekend. Plus they had an extra dark day, and they have a dark day on Friday, so it's a really short week of testimony, just today, tomorrow, and then it will resume on Monday. I am told by Chris Lambert, whom I finally met, that we are down to 31 jurors total, but I counted 32 when I was in there. So I don't know. Maybe we're off by one. It doesn't like fucking matter. I counted 19 women, 13 men. 19 women, 13 men. So 32. That's what I counted. So yeah. 4 alternates were struck on one, 5 on the other, but I think it's either 4 and 4 or 3 and 5. Because I counted like 3 times, and that's the numbers that I came up with. The first witness we have, and this is the only witness for today, is Shelby Liddell. Now, Shelby Liddell is a forensic specialist at County of San Luis Obispo, right? And this is where the alleged crime of the murder of Kristin Smart has occurred. By the way, some of you may not realize why I'm doing this. I'm actually doing this for 2 reasons why I came here. Number one, I came here because this is a much less publicized trial. So I don't want to like show myself as some clout chaser who just like chases celebrities around. This one is going to have a much smaller audience compared to like Johnny Depp or like Marilyn Manson and stuff like that. No question about it. So I'm trying to show that I'm not just interested in celebrity stuff. Number one, actually three goals. Number two, I want to test my mettle with a brand new jury in a completely unrelated case to the Johnny Depp case. And number three, and I think almost most important, is it's not only a test to myself, but it's also like comparing how can I do with like a very publicized trial versus a non-publicized trial and so on. So it's going to be very fascinating. But let's continue. So in the very beginning, as Ms. Liddell takes the stand, I don't know, she's a forensic specialist, so I don't think she has a title. She's not like a deputy or an investigator or what's it called, police officer or anything like that. She's a forensic specialist. And at the end of the day, you will learn kind of about Liddell. She's really not all that experienced in her field, even though she said she had like 300 some odd hours of experience. At the end of the day, she's just kind of like digging dirt, shoveling dirt, and like looking at stuff and preserving it. That's all she's doing. She's not an analyst. So the jurors appear to be paying very much attention in the beginning and taking notes at the start of her testimony. So to me, that tells me already that they're paying attention to the prosecution's case. They haven't given up. They're letting the prosecutor do his job. And the prosecutor is doing a fantastic job in getting testimony out of her. Several jurors, she begins talking about, what is she doing, right? So Liddell begins testifying about excavation areas around the Paul Flores, Ruben Flores house. And there's like they start with a big aerial of like all the excavation sites that they have marked, that they dug up, most of those came up empty except for basically one. One site showed, and that's what you expect. If there's one body, you're going to have one site. So it kind of checks out, right? And in the beginning, I remember I tweeted about the fact that it's very possible that, it doesn't make any sense how several areas had staining, but I completely forgot that the area was dug up, body was put in it, it was closed, allegedly. And then it was opened back up, body was moved, and then closed back up again. So it makes sense why the dirt would be so disjointed, right? Well, the jurors shifted very, very uncomfortably. I remember that when the testimony about the staining on the dirt began, there was at least one woman who sobbed uncontrollably and other jurors who joined her weeping themselves. But this time, I think the initial shock has already passed. And now they're just shifting uncomfortably in their seats because they know what's coming, but they're appear to be very eager to listen to her. And every juror appears to be intent on paying attention to what Ms. Liddell has to say. Now, there was a moment very early on in the morning because the prosecutor had a lot of photos that he was about to be showing to the jury, and his projector began malfunctioning. So the sheriff has to call in like IT people. They take a short break, and during the short break, the jurors return to chatting with in their relative cliques, mostly to their closest neighbor. I tweeted about all of this, by the way. As Liddell talks about the excavation near the house, the judge is looking at the witness and paying close attention to her. So she's kind of giving away her bias. It's these little nuances that you notice, obviously, as a criminal defense attorney. Some people may know what to look for. I don't know if they do or not, but I notice these things because I'm like, wow, you are like really showing your colors. Because if there was like a defense witness up there, some judges would kind of be like, whatever, and like playing with the top of their nose, or like playing on their phone, or like being on the computer or whatever. So the judge is telegraphing to the jury that this is an important witness, which I think is very jaded and very biased and very whatever. But judges are people too. They're going to be doing things that they do. During the short break, like I said, they begin talking with one another. Now, after they fix the projector, Liddell begins talking about the excavation near the house, and the judge is looking at it. So what I just said, and as the judge is looking at the witness, Ms. Liddell, testifying, more than 3/4 of the jurors are taking notes. Especially when she starts talking about staining. So a big thing in this whole case is staining on the dirt, right? That is allegedly, this didn't come out today, but either previously or in the future, we're going to have witnesses to this effect, that the staining came as a result of human decomposition. Now, here's the problem. Staining can also come from other stuff like erosion, weather, water, other things. And Ruben Flores' attorney made a great point. We will come back to their cross-examinations briefly, but let me tell you, it was literally watching the two lawyers work on the other side, because they both get a chance to ask questions of the witness, because they both represent their respective client and they both have a vested interest in the witness's testimony. It was like night and day, you guys. Night and day. Mr. Sanger and Mr. Actually, don't recall his name, but the one representing the father was like, boom, boom, get in, get out. Whereas Paul's attorney was just like, it was like, kill me now. Even we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Even the jurors noticed. We'll get to it. So when photos of the staining are shown, several jurors began nodding, and a couple are even stroking their chins. So there's a lot of cohesion, right? The prosecutor asking questions, they're very attentive. The jurors are very attentive. They're noticing. They're kind of like paying attention. They're stroking their chins. You can see, they're attentive. They're interested. They're nodding. I see that. Very rarely will one of them like cross their arms on direct examination when the prosecutor is the one asking questions. Della Sanders says, So brave and smart. I don't know how brave, but okay. Learning better critical thinking skills as always. Thank you. You are welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for joining. So when Paul's lawyer, during the direct, this was very interesting. So I started noticing a pattern. Again, jury analysis, I've learned from the Johnny Depp trial, is all about looking for patterns. You can't look at one data point in isolation and say, aha, this is what this means. No, because people's behavior sometimes is incongruent and they will react in certain ways. Now I really have the luxury of watching 31 people kind of breathe and think and process information as like one giant, like think of the whole jury collectively as like one giant mammal, and you're watching it breathe and sigh and slouch and perk up, and they all, it's very congruent. Very, very, very rarely will you have complete incongruence, like somebody is slouching and somebody else is kind of like this, like what is going on here, and then somebody else is like asleep. Like it's extremely rare. I did not see that today. If it happened, it was for brief seconds, which I don't count for insufficient evidence. Objection, insufficient evidence. So, and another thing, by the way, somebody asked me, I think earlier, I don't know if it was in the chat or somewhere else, maybe it was in the courtroom, like, how do you report on a jury? Like, how do you do that? And I didn't really know how to answer. And all I said was, because I'm an empath, I'm able to see things other people don't see, apparently. And again, it's all about data. The more data you have, the better of an assessment you're going to be able to do. Excuse me. So, like seeing a prosecution witness, the reactions on direct, on cross, seeing a defense witness, which I'm unfortunately not going to get a chance to see, direct, cross. Are they attentive? Do they care? Are they interested? Are they disinterested? What is their mood? What is their overall attention span? Do they listen for 5 seconds and doze off, or do they listen for 5 minutes and take notes? All of these things matter. Okay? Absolutely, planning magical chaos. I very much appreciate, and you're welcome for my ability to provide you with this information. So let's continue. By the way, you can go in and watch the trial yourself. They have 10 spots for the public, and I think they only had like 9 filled today, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong. But if you get there early enough, you're going to get in, like no question. So this was the first thing that I noticed, right? Paul's lawyer, during the middle of the prosecutor's direct examination of Ms. Liddell, right, the forensic pathologist, Paul's lawyer made an objection, something about speculation, like, objection, Your Honor, she's speculating. And I looked at the jury, because this is the first time he spoke since we've been in the courtroom, and that was maybe, I don't know, I don't have a timestamp, but let's call it, we've been in the courtroom for half an hour, no more than. And this was the first time he made an objection. The whole jury collectively just froze. Like they were like they appeared frozen in time. They didn't move when he spoke. And it was a very brief, and then the judge ruled, and then you could see them like moving again. Like I don't know. I don't know if they tensed up. I don't know if they were like, oh boy, I don't know if they just don't like the interruption of the flow of the trial. Again, it's all a mystery. It's all a mystery to me. But at the same time, it was very noticeable. Like you could not miss it. It was extremely noticeable, which is why I wrote it down. So that struck me, and I was like, I wonder what is that in relation to. So that was strike number one. I learned later. But again, it's these little things that you notice and you're like, this is important. Why did that just happen? And we will come back to it. Then the prosecutor asked if you found any animal remains on the property when you were excavating of Ms. Liddell, and she said no. Half of the jurors are scribbling down information at that point. Not everybody has a notepad. I noticed several jurors don't even have a notepad. They just, I don't know. They're not taking any notes whatsoever. Then there was a moment when the witness said something about like the remains, and this was outside the scope of her expertise. Because remember, she's just a forensic pathologist. She's just there to look, collect, and send it off to the lab, and she's done. Right? She said something about blood was found in the soil, and there was an immediate objection from Paul's lawyer, and the jurors again shifted uncomfortably. That was kind of strike number 2. And I was like, wait a minute. What are they shifting uncomfortably at? The fact that she said that it was blood, or the fact that he objected? Like, it was very difficult to discern at that moment because the reaction and the objection was almost immediate. It's like blood, objection, and juror reaction to shifting very uncomfortably, right? So that was like number 2. That was like number 2, and 1.5. Let's call it 1.5. Strike 1.5. I wasn't exactly sure, but it appeared to me, since I was like, well, wait a minute. I remember about the weeping juror and the Stains' previous testimony, so they're not strangers to the fact that this is blood staining the dirt. But I don't know. So let's continue. As Ms. Liddell continues to testify about the excavation sites, some jurors continue to take periodic notes. Some jurors lean forward. Now, this was important. This was noticeable. Some jurors began to lean forward as Ms. Liddell describes the stained dirt samples that she collected from various quadrants. So a quadrant, they had the excavation site divided into 4, A, B, C, D. When they later, that was back in March of 2021, then they came back to the site in April of 2021 and relabeled them E, F, G, H. They were the exact same sites. There were just different lettering so they don't confuse which one is which, even though they were the exact same quadrants. So as she's talking about all of that, they're all leaning forward and they're listening and they're paying attention. They appear to be very interested in this testimony. The judge, at this point, there was a moment. And again, it's these little nuances that if you blink, you'll miss it, right? There was a moment where she began to say, Ms. Liddell began to say, the witness, something along the lines of, I spoke to the lab technician and immediately, of course, objection, hearsay. And it's 100% clear, unambiguous hearsay. She's about to testify about something that someone else told her at a previous point in time. For the truth of the matter asserted. Hearsay. It's literally the definition of hearsay. And the prosecutor, I don't think even gets a chance to respond. He's just like, I'll ask a different question, because I think she volunteered at the witness. But the judge, after hearing Mr. Sanger, who is the Paul Flores' attorney, after hearing Mr. Sanger's objection, she had a very curious response to that. She didn't just say like sustained, clearly. She showed her bias yet again, very clearly. And to me, I don't know if anybody else will consider it to be bias unless you are familiar with these little things. Because when you're confronted with a clear hearsay objection, I anticipate a similar response, like, yeah, sustained, move on. She can't talk about that. Instead, the judge said, and I quote, sustained at this point. And again, it's like she's telegraphing to the jury whose side she's on. There is no point at which this is later going to be not objectionable. Now, if they put the lab tech on the stand and she's going to testify, like, I tested the soil, it showed evidence of blood, it appeared to be human blood. Like, I don't know what the fuck she's going to say. Either she already testified, which I doubt, or she's going to testify, at which point there might be like a lot of information that may be objectionable. I don't know. She's going to testify as an expert witness, and experts can speculate experts can be like, well, based on my training and experience, I believe after examining the evidence, I think this is human blood, and now it's your job as a defense attorney to discredit them or bring on your own experts and be like, this is why it's not, and this is why it's questionable, and blah, 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 blah. Could it be animal blood? Yes, or no, and here's why, like all of that stuff. But this is the wrong witness. And they can bring that out later. But there is no point in Ms. Liddell's testimony where she can be like, oh yeah, but the lab tech did say this, and this is not objectionable. This is not hearsay evidence. I don't know. It was just taking me so much by surprise. I was so not ready for that. I literally was like, on a clear, 100% clear hearsay objection, the judge said, sustained at this point. That's a direct quote. Sustained at this point. Okay, so at what point will it not be sustained? Never is the right answer, and she just showed her colors yet again. So that kind of shocked me. I was like, looking at the witness, paying attention to what they have to say, that's one thing. But okay, it is what it is. Now, all right, so we're going to cover this real quick. One of the male jurors in the middle of the trial, I have never seen this before in my life. I don't know if this is a California thing or if this is a Monterey County kind of thing or what, or just a Salinas kind of thing. One of the male jurors passed a note to the bailiff, and he just had like a folded piece of paper. He just kind of folded it and he kind of held it up to kind of let the bailiff know that he's got something written on a piece of paper. And the bailiff came up to him and like grabbed the piece of paper and took the piece of paper and gave it to the clerk. And then the clerk passed it to the judge, and the judge read it silently to herself. And then she closed it up, kind of smirked to herself, and set the piece of paper down. And I was literally going like, what the fuck just happened? What the hell? Did he like want to go to the bathroom and ask very politely? Like, what? By the way, don't forget to like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you like this content, subscribe. If you hate this content, fucking subscribe. I love my haters. So anyway, I was like, what is going on? Like, well, I want to know what it said. I was so curious to know. Thank God we found out at the end of the trial. I will tell you right now, I won't keep you in suspense. Apparently, so two things. Number one, they allow juror questions during the trial. And it's insane, you guys. And I actually really, really love it. I really, really love it. Because there were like 4 questions that jurors passed on to the judge that were entered into evidence that they were asked by either the prosecutor or the defense attorney or both. And I was like loving it. Because jurors get to participate now? Are you kidding me? Absolutely not, Jennifer. I am amazed at how good they are for the most part. There's like a couple stragglers that like show up late every now and then. But overall, they are a very cohesive bunch. And we'll talk about them more. There's a few little secrets that I have for you at the end of this stream that I have just accidentally stumbled upon. So stick around if you want to hear them. So I don't think it disrupts the duality. Of course not. So in Kentucky, jurors don't get questions. They don't get to ask questions. Here, they get to ask questions, and they're like, okay, the prosecutor or the defense attorney end up asking them. The judge at the end verifies if those questions were asked and or answered. And if so, then they just move on to the next day. It's phenomenal. The question, by the way, was the judge read it at the end of the day before everybody broke for the day. The juror asked, when does the court anticipate that the trial will be over? And there was like a couple of lines there, like mid-October, late October, question mark, question mark. And she said that she's going to tell the jury tomorrow that they are ahead of schedule, which is true. She doesn't know when it will be over. However, as soon as they have a concrete date, they will absolutely let them know and release them. So I thought it was really, really cute that a juror's like, "Mommy, when do we get to go home?" There was another moment after the break before we went in. The bailiff came out and read juror number XYZ. I'm not going to say the number, so not to put them on blast. But it was like, juror XYZ, juror XYZ. And they were waiting on one person to come in. They haven't come in yet. And one of the jurors was just kind of like talking to the other jurors, and we're like, I feel like we're in school. And like the judge is like the superintendent. And like, oh, juror XYZ, you're in trouble, Mr. or Mrs., like you're not on time. So it's kind of funny, like how they feel that they're in school and like roll is being called and all that. It's just kind of cute how they perceive it. So, yeah. At one moment, the prosecutor placed a photo on the projector sideways, and the defense attorney pointed it out. By the way, Mr. Sanger, Paul Flores' attorney, is such a chatty Cathy. I mean, he talks about everything. He's like, he'll stand with his back to the jury for a second. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm standing with my back to you. I'm not intentional. Something else will happen. He's like, I'm sorry, that's because of old age. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep you. I'm like, he's apologizing for everything. Why are you apologizing so much? It shows your hand that you're like in a losing position. Someone who is confident doesn't apologize every 15 fucking seconds about the job that they're doing. They just do their job. It was very frustrating. Very fucking frustrating. I literally wanted to like slap him upside the head a couple of times and be like, dude, get your shit together. You're here to do a job, not to like, this isn't like the fucking golf course where you're like, sorry, I missed, I don't know, by 2 strokes, man. Like I almost got that ball. Like it's not the golf course. You're in a courtroom. Learn from Ruben Flores' attorney. My God, I'm telling you, night and day. And when the prosecutor placed the photo sideways and the defense attorney pointed it out, one of the jurors audibly, loudly coughed. Maybe completely unrelated, maybe not. I don't know. So this is where I got confused, and I had the whole like maybe all of these stains and all these quadrants, why are they not consistent? Because it's been dug up and refilled and dug up and refilled. So it makes sense. And now I'm on board. Some jurors, so about an hour and a half, less than an hour and 10 minutes. Some of the jurors appear to have gotten the idea of the collection of the stain samples, because you have to understand, the prosecutor has to build a record. He has to put everything in, even if it's mundane and dry and draining and annoying and repetitive, because he'll go like, and then from quadrant A, you did this, and this, and then from quadrant B, you did this and this, and then quadrant C, you did this and this, and then quadrant D, you did this and this, and then you repeated that when you came back for E, F, G, H, and then you collected the samples, and that was it. That took about 3 hours to do, right? Or maybe less than 2 hours. So at some point, about an hour and 10 minutes in, the jurors kind of got the hang of it. Again, jurors are they're people. They're smart entities, They were kind of like listening, and they're just like, all right, we get the gist. We get the idea. And some of them started folding their arms. They're tuning out. That's how a telltale sign. They're bored. Next action. Okay. We get this. Let's go to the next one. Some are still taking notes, but very, very few. There are a few green jurors on the jury panel. When I say green, I don't mean young necessarily. Sometimes they may be young. Sometimes older jurors can still they just never really grow up. They're just always kind of have that childlike wonder, and they believe things. They're not as jaded as fuck like me, who has seen a lot of shit, and doesn't believe anything anymore. So God bless them. God love them. They're people too. So some of them are still taking notes. Um, Thank you, Della. Recent trial of Matthew Moore, who's the defense attorney, won. Judge allowed written questions of the jury frequently, which was read to expert, and it rocked. I believe it. I believe it. What jurisdiction was this, Della? Please let us know in the chat. So without having seen I wrote this at 11:30. Without having seen the defense attorney ask a question yet, because we haven't gotten to the cross examination, it was really hard to compare. How the jury would react to the prosecutor compared to the defense attorney due to the lack of the comparison. However, all jurors appear to be listening very intently and paying attention, to the prosecutor, which indicates trust and rapport. I will compare the attitude that they're having with the prosecutor to the attitude they're having with the defense attorney later. Was that Ohio? I guess it was Ohio. All right. The prosecutor, when he approaches the witness, he kind of does this with his hands, or this. He'll kind of hold it right, like here or here. Anytime he just like takes a pause. I don't know if you all are familiar from body language, what this, not symbol, what is it called? The hand gesture, I suppose, means. In body language terms, this gesture indicates confidence and assuredness, knowledge. Like experts, when they testify, a lot of times they'll put their hands like this. When you are talking about a subject you are very well versed on, you know exactly what you're doing, you understand it, you know it backwards and forwards. When you're don't feel confident, you will never see somebody doing this with their hands. They might kind of maybe do this. That's more of a praying, like, please, dear God, don't let me be crushed, or please believe me, or, oh, dear God, please stop. This hurts, kind of thing, like mentally, maybe that's what they'll do, or they'll do this, this is a lack of assuredness, or maybe like kind of rub the back of their head very consistently, this is like a calming gesture. I do this a lot when I do this, I know, because like I'm trying to just kind of like relax, because sometimes I get a little hyper, but you will never see someone like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, like do this gesture ever. And the prosecutor was doing that a lot, especially when he was approaching the witness and he had like a few seconds to burn. There were certain points where Ms. Liddell was messing up some of her testimony. When I say messing up, I mean very lightly. Like, you would ask her a question, and it's literally, she's looking at a mound of dirt, and he'll go like, is that from your March excavation or your April excavation? The ABCD or EFGH, basically. And she'll look at it, and she'll look at it, and she'll look at it, and she'll be like, I don't know. And normally, like, I know jurors can be like very frustrated when you're like not getting, they're like, you're wasting my time. Like, get your shit together. They can appear annoyed or frustrated or discombobulated or distraught. Every dis word that you can think of, they're just dissed, right? Literally dissed. Like, what are you doing? They were very forgiving. They appeared, even when she would stumble and mess something up, and like, I don't remember exactly which one this is. I don't know. They were just like, okay, moving on. Next question, no problem. They were very, very forgiving. Very, very allowing her the benefit of the doubt, which I found fascinating. Because normally jurors get irritated when a witness is like, I don't know the answer to that. Like, you're supposed to know. But for them, I don't know if it's because it's the age of the case, how old it is, or because the excavations were done like 1.5 years ago, or because all of these fucking big dirt sites look exactly alike. I don't know. But they were very forgiving, which is very unusual. Even when the defense attorney doesn't say anything. Now this was like strike 3 or 2.5, whatever you want to call it. Even when the defense attorney, Mr. Sanger, doesn't say anything. At one point, he just he did this, right? He cleared his throat. Some of the jurors were already like, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. And I'm like, all right, now there's a pattern. We have data points 1, 2, and 3. Like he opened his mouth, he did an objection, he talked about when there was the whole thing about the blood, he cleared his throat. Every time he opens his mouth or clears his throat or gives the appearance that he's about to open his mouth, the jurors are just like, like, oh boy, here we go. Not in a pleasant way. Not in like a, oh, I wonder what we're about to learn. Because a lot of times when a defense attorney objects, like in my trials, if I object, I want to telegraph to the jury that something improper is happening here. Apparently, Mr. Sanger doesn't have the same rapport with his jury, because every time he opens his mouth, they're just like, oh boy. Like to have this distant, I don't know. It's not a good feeling if I were in Mr. Sanger's shoes or Paul's shoes, because that's my lawyer, for God's sake. There was a moment where one of the jurors in the back began coughing, and one of the bailiffs immediately started like hawk-eyeing him, like paying attention to him. And I'm comparing that, and this is when I tagged Vanessa Blair. Shout out to you, Vanessa. Hope you're doing great. Compare that to the Johnny Depp trial, where there was, both of us noticed, like one of the juror number 2 was like having a full-on fucking seizure in the jury box, and we're just like, hello, anybody? Excuse me, bailiff, are you? And she looked at us like, what the fuck do you want? The kind of look. You're supposed to sit and be quiet, right? I'm like, lady, no. Like we both like pointed, like, look at the juror. The juror is, I think they're having a stroke or something, a seizure. Like I don't know, because he was just like kind of, like he was like trembling, and he had like his hands like kind of like this, and we're just, and she didn't fucking care at all. She didn't even look where we were pointing. Vanessa will confirm all of this. We're both in the courtroom. It was terrifying. Luckily, everything was fine. Thank God. But I was absolutely mortified. So when not the case here, and maybe, I don't know, some people said in the comments on Twitter like COVID, not COVID, difference, like seizures only kill one person, COVID can kill the whole courtroom. That's a disgusting, jaded way of looking at life, but I understand it. Then the discussion completely shifts, right? So this whole hour and a half, almost to the minute, excuse me, there was a discussion about the excavation dirt. Now the discussion shifts to Michael's trailer. Now Michael, I guess, is their buddy or whatever, but his trailer has been at the Flores' property for I don't know how long. All I know is that in March of 2021 and April of 2021, that trailer was there. Now, this is the trailer that was allegedly used in transporting Kristin Smart's remains from the excavated site where they dug up her body after burying it under the house, putting it in the trailer, and then driving it somewhere, burying her somewhere else. So when the discussion shifts to the cargo trailer, every single juror that has a notepad begins writing stuff down. And especially when Ms. Liddell begins testifying about the Blue Star chemical that reacts to blood. Basically, this is how it works. They get like a little pill. It's a Blue Star made pill. Blue Star is the brand name. And they take the pill, they dissolve it in water, they mix it up, make sure it's all dissolved, and then they put it in like a spray bottle, and they screw on like a little spray thing. And if you spray it on a surface or whatever, and it detects blood, it will kind of glow in a blue color if you shine light on it. Now, it also reacts to other chemicals, and there's a difference in how it shines. So that's how you can tell, according to the Ms. Liddell, that's how you can tell the difference between when it's like blood and when it's not blood. So when she starts talking about that, again, nearly all jurors are again writing stuff down. Several jurors' interests get piqued, like you can see them kind of getting perked up in their seat. A couple are leaning forward, and they appear to be very attentive to this blue star blood type test. 4 jurors I noticed are leaning forward. 2 are spinning in their chairs anxiously. 2 brought their hands to their faces with piqued interest, is what I wrote down. Kind of like, so they didn't just like bring it to their faces. It was kind of like one of these, when you bring like a finger and you're clearly interested, not like this, or like this. This is boredom. They it was kind of like this. I think one of them was, what did she do? I think she did kind of like that. One of them was kind of like this. Like you can tell, they're interested. They were very interested in that. For obvious reasons, because like this trailer is the allegations are that this trailer was used in the transportation of Kristin Smart's remains, and if so, then it's going to have blood evidence on it, and if true, then it was used for the transportation of her body potentially, along with all the other circumstantial evidence. So as the prosecutor begins shuffling some of his photos, you can see his hands visibly tremble a little bit. I don't think it was nerves. I think it was excitement, personally, actually. I think he was very excited to get such a vital testimony into the record for the jury to hear. It's a very important day today, actually. I just accidentally stumbled upon a very important day. There was a moment when Ms. Liddell said the words, the spray, the blue star spray will indicate if there's human blood. This is exactly what she said. Human blood is a direct quote. There was an objection by Mr. Sanger, and a lot of the jurors were very remiss. They did not like that objection at all. As soon as he objected to that statement, they were just like kind of looking at him like, Even though the judge kind of sustained the objection in a way, but not really. She kind of left it open for the prosecutor to clarify. And the prosecutor absolutely clarified. And he was like, okay, well, could it react to something else? She was like, oh, yeah, it could react to bleach as well. But the reaction level, the brightness level would be completely different in this blue star chemical. Then we go for a break. Upon departure from the courtroom, jurors go right back to chatting amongst themselves, and their bonds appear to be very strong, I noted. So far, I've tweeted all this out. This is all on Twitter. Now we come to the portion of my notes that are nowhere else to be found. They're not on Twitter. Probably won't even be on Twitter. I don't know. There's not as much activity or peak interest in this type of stuff. So it's not like the Johnny Depp trial. People are just like, what the fuck ever, Larry. So I might just leave it in video format. So if people want to know what happened in the second half of the day, they have to come to this video. They can't go to Twitter because it's not there. Might do the same thing tomorrow. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. So here we go. What happened after the break? So after the break, here it is. Brand new, fresh stuff. Cross-examination of Liddell. So Liddell is still on the stand. Shelby is her first name. Shelby Liddell is still on the stand. We come back. It's like 1:40 p.m. local time. So you know how we already had like 5 strikes against Mr. Sanger? Anytime he speaks or gets up or clears his throat, the jurors have like this like negative reaction. They're kind of like, oh God, this is happening again. I mean, they know this is coming. They know this is coming. One of the jurors before walking in, I overheard him talking to another juror, and he said, let's go power through this. Those were his exact words to another juror. Let's go power through this. And I'm like, I didn't even notice, I didn't even pay attention to it. It all kind of came to me later on, but I wrote it down for later use. And I'm like, oh, now I understand. They're familiar. They figured out the pattern. First, the prosecutor asks questions. Then the defense attorney asks questions. They're leaning in a certain direction. They're leaning towards the prosecution. They can't make up their minds yet. But just like in the Amber Heard trial, see, people forget this. They're not like blank slates, okay? They're not computers like, all right, until all of the data is received by my computer, I shall form an opinion about the subject. They are starting to get a feeling about what they believe and where they believe this case may be headed. That's not to say that they're violating a court order and forming an opinion. No, there's a huge difference between being like, oh yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt, he did it. Or, oh yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt, he didn't do it. You give yourself away when you talk in certain ways about where your mind lies, where your intentions and impressions are stronger, right? And language is always a dead giveaway. Body language is always a dead giveaway. Words you use are always a dead giveaway. And so kind of like in in the TRO of Amber Heard, let's get it over with. That literally that's what she said, and this is what one of the jurors said to the other, like, let's go power through this. Thank you for covering this. This is close to home. Yes, planning magical chaos. You are welcome. Thank you very much. So as soon as Mr. Sanger gets up and the judge says, Mr. Sanger, like, the floor is yours, right? The jurors figured out the pattern. Prosecutor asks questions, defense attorney asks questions. Next witness. I noticed every single juror, pretty much without exception that I could notice, as soon as his name gets called, they all kind of look down. Not at their notebooks. At the floor. Which is a terrible sign. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't believe or don't trust, but they definitely don't have the same rapport that they do with the prosecutor. That's already obvious. What that also tells me is that maybe he doesn't do as good enough of a job, which I later learned absolutely. And he literally took all of the direct examination by the prosecutor, which you never, ever, 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 fucking ever, 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 ever do as a criminal defense lawyer. Ever. You never take the direct, go over it exactly as the prosecutor did, and point out inconsistencies. That is the worst fucking way that you can possibly do a cross-examination of a witness, whether or not vital to the case. You take 1 point, 2 point, 3 points, like no more than 4. At that point, you're already fishing. You take 2, 3 points, 4 maximum, and you hammer them home, and you're like, okay, let's talk about the stains. You are not an expert on stains, correct? Correct. You do not understand what these stains mean, correct? Correct. You do not know, no. Okay, let's talk about the trailer. The blue star could create false positives, correct? Correct. Cool. Excavation, correct? Correct. Boom, sit down. You can do that in 5 minutes, and you completely obliterate. The jury already forgot what the fuck she testified to for the last 2 hours. You can kill it in 5 minutes flat when done effectively. I have done it with police officers. Officer, I just have 7 questions for you. I've literally done this in one of my cases. That's it. I have 7 questions for you. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And as soon as I was done, you sit your ass down, and I ended up winning that case. Why? See, defense attorneys sometimes are terribly afraid. Like, well, what if I miss? What if I miss something? What if I forget? What if the jury doesn't? But what if they latch on to? Well, that means you don't understand your case. If you understand your case, you understand that there, in the 2 hours that the prosecutor was asking questions of the witness, there were really only 3 points made. Trailer, staining, and blood. That's it. Those are the 3 points. You attack them, get in, get out. He didn't do that. He was up there for a long time. A long time. Like an hour. I don't know. I lost track. At least an hour and like 10 minutes. Something like that. I think an hour 15. about an hour and 15 minutes. He was droning about, oh my God. And it was just, it was like, it was murder. It was absolute fucking murder. And the jury was bored. But let's get into it. So it's important. Remember, I said nuances are important. Me just telling you this is what happened doesn't give you anything. Let me give you details, unfiltered details of my observation of what the jury did during the cross-examination. So, like I said, as soon as Mr. Senger's name is mentioned, they're already just like, Now I understand why. Most jurors look at Sanger. Now, this is another thing, and I saw this with Amber Heard. Remember how some of the jurors were like, Amber's sitting right there, and they were kind of like giving her the side eye, kind of looking at her like that? Where they're looking at Mr. Sanger the same way. They don't look at the witness the same way. At the witness, they turn their head and they look, and then they look at Mr. Sanger. So they're looking over there, and then they'll look at Mr. Sanger and they'll do this. I noticed that on at least 4 jurors immediately. They're giving him the side eye, which is not a good sign. That means that they're disinterested, and they're not even wasting the energy to move their head to tilt it in his direction, which goes to show that they're disinterested. A few of the jurors are rocking back and forth, spinning in their chairs as Sanger tries to question whether Blue Star was detecting blood or not. Most jurors are even looking down during the cross-examination, but they, like I said, they don't appear to be taking any notes. Like, they're looking at their notepads, but I don't know if they're reading, or they appear disinterested and bored. They're not taking any notes. I didn't see that in the beginning. Throughout, it was peppered in. Not as clear as from the prosecution. In the prosecution's case, they're like going from listening to, oh my God. And like a lot of them are just like taking notes down. With the defense, it was kind of like, okay, and one of them will kind of write something down, and then they won't write anything down for a while, and then somebody else will write something down. And when Sanger says that he wants to go over the same exhibits, there's this moment right in the beginning of his cross-examination of Liddell where he just says, I'm going to go over all the exhibits that the prosecutor went through. Several jurors audibly sigh. They're like you can hear, they're like, here we go. He's going to do it again. Others shift, and a couple of them purse their lips with their, that infamous whelp expression. You can't see it because of my beard, but I'm kind of doing this. It's one of these. A couple of them do that. Again, very negative expressions. They're like, it's a, oh boy, here we go types of expressions. There is a noticeable shift in mood in the room as Sanger is doing his cross-examination. It's more somber, it's more mellow, it's more bored, it's more get on with it. It's not cohesive. There were several points, like great points that Sanger made throughout his cross-examination, but they were so disjointed and buried in the middle of this long, drawn-out, piss-boring cross-examination that made everybody want to like fall asleep. Sanger, again, keeps apologizing for things he's about to do and like questions he's about. Like, I'm sorry, I have to ask you this. And I'm like, it feels awkward and weird, I wrote down. I wish he would just do it without saying it. He appears to be lacking in confidence as a result, and the witness has complete control of the situation. I mean, this is something that completely blew my mind. You're supposed to be the smartest person in the room, the defense attorney. You're the one who's everyone supposed to be watching. Instead, everybody's watching the prosecutor and the witness. And the witness kind of learned very quickly that, hey, I can control this guy. And she will start saying stuff, and he's just like helpless. He's like, why am I not getting the stuff from this witness that I want to get? Well, that's because you are not doing your job correctly, sir. You're too soft in your questions. You have strong character. I am sure of it. But we don't see it. And if you don't show it, we don't know that you have it. Does that make sense? If you're not displaying your charisma, then there is no charisma. Not displaying your charisma is the same as not having it. So Sanger points out that one of the digging sheriffs is not wearing gloves. Like there's a photo, and one of the sheriffs is like this. You can see him. He's got the shovel, and he's like digging into the dirt. And it's all about having a sterile area and all that. And I know you're supposed to raise reasonable doubt, but for fuck's sake, man, you're not Cochran. You're not Shapiro. Okay, this is not OJ fucking Simpson. You forget your place, man. It's just you. Okay? His claim to fame is that he was on the defense team for Michael Jackson in his was it the pedophilia case with the kids back in 2006. Well, he wasn't really like a main character. He was just kind of on the sidelines, and it shows. It's definitely showing. Like, dude, you're not Cochran, you're not Shapiro, you're not Kardashian. Stop trying to act like it. And it's very disturbing because he's like throwing everything at the wall and hoping like something sticks. And it's failing miserably because he's like, well, these officers are not wearing gloves, are they? And the witness is like, Ms. Liddell, she's like, she's looking at the, sorry, I was reading the question in my head. I'll address it in just a second, Della. And they're not wearing gloves, are they? She's like, no. And I look at the jury, and the jury's just like, they're digging, dude. They're digging. Like, they don't need gloves. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, who fucking cares that they're not wearing gloves when they're digging? It's important to wear gloves when you're like handling the soil samples. And she testified, I always wear gloves when I'm handling the soil samples and I'm getting samples from the soil, What are you looking? What are you looking at the moment the jury walks in? I don't really pay attention to them. I don't really pay attention to them when they're walking in. I was on a lot of mock juries and get bored too. Yeah, it can. When attorneys are not doing their job correctly, it can get very, very boring. And I'm going back tomorrow. So, yeah. You can try to be Cochran, but Cochran without the charisma is just shitty work, in my opinion. Just my opinion. Feel free to disagree. Okay, now this one really blew my mind. This one I thought was extremely inappropriate. So in the room, other than the judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorneys, and the jurors, and the media and the public, there's also family. Okay? Let's not forget, I think it's the dad, the grandfather, grandmother, maybe an aunt, and I think her sister. I'm not sure. Sister, cousin, she appears to be like that age. Like if Kristin Smart were alive today, like early 40s, maybe late 30s, early 40s. She appeared very emotional throughout bits and pieces, but she tolerated it. But there's a moment in that trial today where I got extremely uncomfortable, and I wasn't alone. The whole room, like, audibly shifted when this happened. So in one of the holes, there was like a little leaf, apparently. I don't know. It was hard to see because I'm so far away from the projector. But I guess the jury can see it. There's a leaf. And Sanger, the defense attorney, reminded the room that prior to today, he made a joke about that leaf. That it looks like a little gremlin. What? He actually said that in open court. Like, I think I made the joke that that there's a leaf there, and I don't know, I made the joke earlier that it kind of looks like a little gremlin. And you can see, and I wish I was in the room when he first made that joke. I wish I was there, because I guarantee the whole room was like this. And the reason for that is, I understand, okay? You have a very tough job. It's a criminal defense case. It's a murder trial. You're trying to make it interesting. You're trying to make it fun in any way that you can. Not boring, okay? Let's call it that. You're trying to make it not boring. But you cannot make silly jokes, because you are, number one, you're showing disrespect to the case, you're showing disrespect to the deceased, and you're showing disrespect to the families and the jurors. You cannot do that. So like, as soon as he said the whole gremlin thing, his family, who's sitting like directly in front of me, like I was literally in the row behind them, they audibly sigh. No, excuse me, audibly groan. The jury audibly shifts, and several of them furrow their eyebrows like so. Hey, Rita, thank you very much. They literally do this because they're like, what the fuck, dude? And I felt the same way. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Why are you making a joke in the middle of a murder trial? It was so bad as he was making that joke again. The more he continued to talk, like I saw this sister, whoever she is, she was leaning forward. She even put her hand in her head, like her head in her hands, excuse me. She was just like, oh dear Lord. Like I couldn't see her face, but she was leaning forward and kind of doing this, right? Like she was, at the end of the day, he's talking about the hole that my sister or cousin or whoever was potentially in, right? Like, how fucking dare you? And I agree with her. It was so bad. Like the man sitting next to her, the older man, like maybe her father, maybe her uncle, I don't know, is kind of like rubbing her up and down the back and kind of like pats her, and he rubs her again, and he's doing like circles, and he's going up and down, and he taps her again, and eventually she just can't fucking take it, and she gets up and leaves the room. I think it was despicable. You can't make a joke like that. It's not the time, the place. You don't have the right to make that joke. So it is what it is. He did it, not me. Now, this is another interesting observation. When Sanger first got up there, it was about 1:40 p.m., give or take. A couple of jurors, let's call them like number 1 and number 9, just for the sake of argument. Right? They're really not, but I'm trying to like estimate in my head like where they would be, because there's like 2 sets of jurors. Obviously, we have 2 juries in the room, collectively 32 people. Well, he got up there at 1:40. Jurors 1 and 9, let's just call them again for the sake of argument. I'll never use these numbers again except for this purpose. They have a thing in common. When they're uncomfortable, they like to fold their arms. And 1 and 9 folded their arms at 1:40 when Sanger got up there and opened his mouth for the first time in cross-examination. And I look at the clock, and it is now 2:25, or my watch. Both were showing the same time, obviously. 45 minutes of him talking, asking questions of Liddell. Their arms are still folded. They never unfolded them. They literally sat there like this for 45 minutes. So by 225, collectively, the jurors appear to have collectively zoned out, as the defense attorney is not providing them anything of substance, because I did not catch much of anything of substance for them to sink their teeth into. And this reinforces, I write, my previous theory that having 2, 3, or 4 points, get in, get out, is a much better strategy. Several jurors and even the judge are seen yawning. And I think the bailiff too. I think I yawned too. I can't remember. Everybody's yawning. It's towards the end of the day. It's like 2:30, post lunch. Everybody just wants to go home. And they all know we still have 2 hours of this. Now, we ended up ending the day a bit early, but still, it was a bit shorter than usual. Now, remember, I made that joke prior to going back in after the lunch break. One of the jurors made the joke about the fact that it's like the judge is like the dean of students. It's, and they didn't want to get in trouble because somebody was late, so it's kind of funny. And then let's go in there and power through this was the statement. This is where I wrote it down so I don't forget to talk about it when they were going back in. Okay, so now it's 2:35, and even more jurors are seen reclining back in their seats, appear bored and distant and disinterested, and more dis words. The prosecutor at some point, several points, okay, so now it's 2:40. The prosecutor, throughout the cross-examination by Paul Flores' attorney, at several points, the prosecutor objected. Sometimes they were sustained, sometimes they were overruled. Sometimes I feel like the prosecutor just likes to object to throw Mr. Sanger off his off his game, kind of throw him off because he's older, and I get that. It's sometimes can be an effective strategy, especially if the defense attorney can't keep his shit together, and it's definitely showing here. So he objected maybe, I don't know, 7, 8 times by this point. I lost count. I wasn't keeping score because it's not one of those things that I felt important to pay attention to. I will say that when Sanger would object, remember I told you, like, first the jury froze, then they were just kind of like, oh God, then and when he opened his mouth, and when the prosecutor objects, they don't have the same reaction. Prosecutor objects over and over and over and over and over, and they're just like, okay, what's happening? All right, cool. Objection. Okay. All right, what's happening? All right, cool. Doesn't matter how many times he did it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Interestingly enough, when the prosecutor objects, he doesn't even look up from his table. He's just like, objection, speculation, calls for speculation, hearsay, relevance. And he doesn't even look up from his desk. He just looks so confident. When Mr. Sanger objects, it's like very hesitant. It's very there's a very noticeable difference, very noticeable in these two attorneys. Like, that's night and day. That's fine, but we'll get to in a minute about the two defense attorneys, because they each have their own defense attorney. Paul has one, and Ruben has one. The two Flores is the father and son. So I don't know. I don't know if the jury's taking Mr. Sanger personally or not. I have no idea. But we quickly take a break around 2:55. And remember I told you I was going to share a few secrets with you? Remember how I said I have a public badge now? Not a media badge. I think that the mainstream media, by the way, has helped me acquire more information than I would otherwise be able to acquire, but for my badge being public. Because if it had said media, they probably would have been like, oh shit, there's a media person over there. And just kind of been like more quiet, the jurors. But because they look at me and they're like, oh, he's public. He's a member of the public. We can basically like talk amongst ourselves without having to worry. Because obviously I don't engage with them. I don't ask them any questions. Sometimes they'll just make a statement towards me and I'll respond with like a laughter or something, very nonchalant, clearly. But we were in the basement during the short break. There was a short break from 2:55 to 3:15. And I was in the basement getting I didn't go there for anything. I just went there for some snacks and some drinks. And your ears pick things up. And I just sat there minding my own business. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't pay attention to anybody. I was minding my own business. And they were just talking amongst themselves. And I picked up on some of the stuff. The first thing I caught was one of the young female jurors looked at one of the other jurors as they were like getting snacks and whatever. So they're just like talking about whatever. They're like, oh yeah, I want this and da 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 da, and this is too much sugar. Am I going to be able to sleep? Like they're all just talking amongst themselves. And then one of them just goes, the young female goes, oh my God, man, I am dying in there. I tried so hard to suppress laughter because I'm like, okay, there is no way that you're talking about the collective day. You're talking about Mr. Sanger asking questions. That's what you're talking about. I am dying in there. You're talking about like, oh dear God, when will this hell be over with Sanger asking questions? I am positive because that's exactly how I feel too. Then the male juror looks at her and responds with, oh yeah, my eyes are getting very heavy. That's a direct quote. So she says, I'm dying in there. He says, my eyes are getting very heavy. Then some time goes by. Another juror in a completely different conversation, not related to those. Like those two, I think, left. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention that much. I was just listening. One of them says, a male goes, I was falling asleep in there. I'm like, man, they got a collective feeling, And then one of the females whispers to that same male and goes, I think I saw the DA dozing off. Like she tried to whisper it so softly so nobody could hear, but I heard it. I picked up on it. And I'm like, of course they can say that. Oh my God. This is what kills me about this stuff is that they're fucking people, man. They're humans. Don't put them in a box and be like, you are only permitted to do these very things and you are not allowed outside of this box. This is the box you live in from now until the case is over. You are not allowed to move out of this box unless the judge permits you explicitly to do so. Do you understand? Blink 1 for yes, blink 2 for no. You're not blinking. Is it because I put matches in your eyes? Are you willing to listen now? So I can take the matches out of your eyes? Okay, you may blink now. God. Human. Exactly, Vanessa. Human woman. Human people. They're humans, okay? Blink once. Like, blink twice if you need help. Oh man. They're people. Of course they're allowed to do this. I'm not dissing you. It's just I get that question all the time. Like, oh my God, are they permitted to say that they're bored? Like, what does that do? They're just talking amongst themselves. They're just saying like what they feel. There's no rule against that. Okay, if there was, it would probably be living in a country like Germany. Sorry, I had something in my throat. No offense to Germans. I'm talking like 1943. Bailiff passed around some candy around 3:20 p.m. and some of the jurors, actually all the jurors by the looks of it, got really, really excited to get their daily sugar fix, apparently. I guess it's a common occurrence. There was like a whole candy bowl and just went around, and all the jurors were eating it and were very happy. And now we come to the finale. Oh my God. Like I said, it was like night and day. It's like 3:30. Everybody's tired. Maximum, we have 1 hour left of testimony. I don't remember Ruben's attorney's name. Somebody may be able to shout it out in the chat. But oh my God. He was just like, he gets up there and he's like, all right, motherfucker, I got 3 questions for you. You know, does Marcellus Wallace look like a bitch? And Ms. What's her name? Liddell was like, what? I said, does Marcellus Wallace look like a bitch? And again, Ms. Liddell was like just trying to eat her fucking burger and smoke her apples, you know, and Ruben's attorney was just like, say what again? You know, say what again? I dare you. I double dog dare you. And Ms. Liddell was just like, what? And Ruben's attorney just fucking capped her right there in open court. That just pow pow. And yeah, that's basically how it fucking went down. That's literally how it went down. He came in and he was like, look, I got several questions. And he's like, staining, what is the difference between, like, what was it called? It was like staining and something else. And she's like, I don't know. I can't really tell you. So you're not an expert on this stuff? No. All right. So you can't tell if this is like human remains or non-human remains? No, I can't. Okay, fantastic. You can't tell if it's blood or not blood? No, because you're not trained in that stuff. No, because you're not an expert. No. Thank you, Your Honor. That's all the questions I have. He sits the fuck down. 5 minutes. Five minutes. He did more effectively, more efficiently, direct, to the point, not wasting time. Boom, 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 boom. Hit his 3 points, sat his ass down, and got out of there. And I can tell you, the jury may still be like scratching their heads, thinking, questioning, like, I don't know if this is, you know, if we believe it. But by God, they appreciated it. I even wrote down that the jurors appear to appreciate the efficiency of Ruben's attorney because he was direct to the point. No fucks given. I love that. I absolutely love that. I adore that. I literally would not be surprised if just because of shit like this, Ruben walks away from this and Paul gets convicted because he's got the shittier lawyer. Now, again, 1 day is not enough. I am not maintaining. That's pretty much the end. There was one little point on redirect. The prosecutor asked like one question, and then a recross. Sanger, excuse me, again, like opened up the whole. Can I talk about like the preliminary hearing? There was a preliminary hearing in this case, and on certain line, she said something about the staining that bothered him, that he tried to like get her to recant or disagree or agree with. And she goes like, well, I've reviewed my testimony and I can tell you that like I misunderstood you at that time. Now I'm telling you how it is. And they take a short recess. They go out into the hallway and I guess they try to sort it out because he's like, I've not been provided this in discovery, Your Honor. Did you make a separate report on this issue? Which she did not. And that's basically the end of it. So, like I said, my prediction, I know this has been literally 1 day and that half day that I had back in July, which was the openings of the case. My prediction, Paul's going to get convicted. Ruben's going to walk away. Literally just based on attorneys. This is a preliminary prediction. I have about 40% confidence in this prediction. I'm not very confident about it. I need more data, which hopefully I will be able to supplement tomorrow, because apparently we have, according to the judge, a full day of testimony tomorrow. So I'm very excited about that. So maybe I'll be able to get a little bit more of a picture. But unfortunately, again, I don't get defense witnesses just yet. But the jury's mood, as of this juncture, if they were to go back and deliberate right now, which is completely unfair since the defense has not put on their case yet, I think prosecution wins against Paul. Prosecution loses against Ruben. Why? Difference in attorneys. Simply a difference in attorneys. Ruben's attorney is like so fucking hammer time. It makes me happy. Like, he looks believable. He looks credible. He looks like you can build rapport with the guy. Whereas Paul's attorney is just like, all right, here's my napkin. Let's start smearing it all over the case and then kind of see where I'm going to end up tomorrow, you know. Whereas Ruben's attorney is just like, all right, boom, 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 boom. Thank you. Bye. Exactly. Not all attorneys are born the same. When is the next book story time? We can do it this weekend. You guys want to do it this weekend? We can do it this weekend. I'm literally in San Francisco with nothing to do, really. Going to Alcatraz. I have that planned. I might go out. I don't know. Maybe. Not really super excited about that, but I set aside time to kind of explore San Francisco. So we can do the next. So I found this, you guys. Let me show you what I found. The Complete Adventures of Curious George. That's what I found. This is what I found. And it's got all his books in one place. So the one that we read, Curious George in 1941, actually renewed. It's got the colors all updated. Then it's got Curious George Takes a Job, Curious George Rides a Bike, Curious George Gets a Medal, Curious George Flies a Kite, Curious George Learns the Alphabet, and then Curious George Goes to the Hospital. It's the last book, so I imagine to die. I don't know. I'm being facetious, of course, but like, dear Lord. There's a retrospective essay. I don't know what that means, but we'll explore that. And yeah, this is the original Curious George. It's got notes on it too. See, this is more updated. The coloring is a bit better. That's the one we did. And then the next one is Curious George Takes a Job. So we can do that one on Saturday if you guys want. Rita says yes. Alcatraz is cold on the way there and back. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. I brought warm clothes with me because I knew that San Francisco is hit or miss. So, all right, you guys. I wanted to thank you for joining me. It's been great fun, as always, to report on a jury for you. I mean, obviously, this is a lot less publicized and notarized because not notarized, notorious. I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? Because a very small percentage of the population is interested in this case, and I really like that. I really like the fact that I'm able to give you something very small, very intimate, very personal to a lot of you. I know that we had several people in the chat thank me, saying this is close to home, this is very personal, and so on. I have met Chris, yes, Planning Magical Chaos. I have met Chris. He looks like he drank the Kool-Aid. He's talking to mainstream media folks like they're his BFFs, which, listen, no judgment. It's to him, he's like, he's small potatoes, relatively speaking. He finally got to like almost 10,000 subscribers on Twitter, which congratulations to him. But at the same time, he's like, a media person talks to him, he gets like stars in his eyes, which is okay. Let him do his thing. Maybe I'll have him on my channel if he's interested. So thank you all. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for more. Bye, everybody.